Good afternoon. Hope you're having a great week. It is Thursday, I think. Thursday, June 2nd, 2:19 p.m. Central Daylight Time, local time here in Oklahoma City. I'm at home if you can't tell. And yes, I know Mark prefers that I do driving videos, but those are really hard to do because I don't edit videos. And I guarantee you that every time I'm driving, I'm trying to make a video. But anytime there's an interruption, I have to restart the video. I start trying to make the video all over again because I don't edit. So it's really hard for me to do driving videos because there's so many interruptions. It's a lot easier for me to make videos sitting here in my house where there's, not cars passing me and cutting me off and shit like that. So, what do I want to talk about? I want to talk about the freight industry and fuel prices. So I've made a couple of videos and I've talked about it several times about I think a lot of trucking companies are going to go out of business within the next couple of years. I don't know when exactly it's going to happen. It's going to depend on how fast freight rates drop and how fast fuel prices rise. Well, fuel prices rose really quick and they're still rising. But we had a huge spike in fuel cost and freight rates are plummeting right now. So I don't know. It's probably going to happen a lot sooner than I expected. I expected this to take, about a year before we started feeling a lot of pressure. And I can tell you right now, trucking companies are feeling pressure at this very moment. They've been feeling pressure for the last month or so. But let's take a look at freight rates around the country on Landstar's load board and look at fuel prices. And then, I'll give you my opinion on it. Now, freight rates, the trucking industry is a very, very big industry. It's very complex. There's a lot of things that you can do in trucking. There's a lot of different types of cargo you can haul, and the rates to haul the various cargo they pay extremely different rates. Like, somebody that's hauling dry van, they may think $3 a mile is a really good rate, whereas somebody that's hauling oversized or overweight, if you tell them $3 a mile, they're going to laugh at you. Depending on how oversized or overweight it is, they may be wanting like $50 or $60 a mile to haul that shit. Maybe even more than that. It just depends on how oversized or overweight it is, or how complex the load is. But so for the sake of this video, we're going to talk about shit that I haul. We're going to use my normal search parameters. Let's go over there and look at that. This is Landstar's load board. We're going to look at my normal search parameters that I use in all of my videos. These are the search parameters that I typically use. And we're going to go here to Oklahoma City Strict. This is my base search parameter that I use. Sometimes I will adjust my search parameters based on the market that I'm in, because sometimes I'll be in a market where not a single load will pull up under these search parameters, and I'll have to lower my standards to be able to find a load. But we're going to use my base search parameters. We're going to look around the country and just see what the market is like. And I'm going to provide some context as we're looking around. I'll tell you what's normal. So right now, let's turn the search radius down from 350 down to 150. I usually only use this big 350 mile search whenever I'm looking for a load to leave the house on. So all these searches, we're going to do them at a 150 mile radius. We'll leave all the rest of the parameters the same. These are very restrictive results. It's not showing any loads over 38,000 pounds. 38,000 is my max. I only want to see loads that I can haul. So these are just dry van loads that do not require lift gate. I do have power only and tow away selected as well, because I can haul that stuff. But aside from that, it's just regular dry van loads. No team loads, because I am not a team. And I don't want to see hazmat loads, because hazmat typically doesn't pay enough to bother with. That's another reason I don't haul heavy, is because these assholes that list really heavy loads, they typically don't pay extra. They usually pay less because the type of people you're doing business with that are trying to fit every ounce they can on the trailer, they're the companies that are trying to cut costs as much as they possibly can. They're not good companies to do business with. There's a lot of reasons I don't haul heavy, but yeah, we're not talking about that in this video. But so we're looking at $3.30 per mile and a minimum of $4,000. So I don't want to see loads under $4,000. I don't want to see loads that don't pay at least $3.30 a mile. I don't want to see loads that have more than 2 extra stops on them. And I have a bunch of destination restrictions. Basically, nothing in the Northeast is going to show on this. Alaska is not going to show up. Colorado is not going to show up. I don't think Montana shows up. There's some freight dead spots that don't show up in here. And also a lot of the Northeast does not show up in here. And some of just the East Coast doesn't show up in here. Places I don't like to go. So, but we're going to use the same search results all over the place. And these are the same search result, or say, not results, but the same search filters or parameters that I always use. So, nothing's changing here. Total number of loads right now, 79,223. Let's, is there a refresh button, or do I just have to hit the refresh button? I think I just have to hit the refresh button. 79,589. Go back to Oklahoma City strict, change this back down to 150. All right, so load count. 2 loads. Within 150 miles of Oklahoma City, there are only 2 loads that match these search parameters. That's really low compared to normal. Normal, I can't remember. I would say, because I normally don't search 150 miles around Oklahoma City. I normally do the 350 mile search around Oklahoma City, but I would say normal would be 5 to 10 loads or something like that. More than 2. Let's go check Fontana, California. Fontana, the LA market, is the market that I usually use to judge how good the freight industry is. So let's look at the load count there. 65 loads matching these search parameters. Normally, there would be between 200 and 500 loads matching these search parameters. 2 and 500 loads. This is really, really, really low. Let's check Central California, Tracy, California. Load count, 5 loads. That is really, really low. I usually get somewhere around a quarter to a third of the loads that I get in the Southern California market, I get in Central California, a quarter to a third. So Central California is taking a much bigger hit than Southern California is. Because if Southern California is at 65 divided by 4, there should be about 16 loads on here. And right now there's only 5. So yeah, Central California is even worse than Southern California. It's taken a bigger drop than Southern California. Let's check, Oregon and Washington are not very good freight markets, like even under normal circumstances. Let's check Portland, Oregon. Even in a normal market, like 6 months, a year ago, whenever the freight was really amazing, there wouldn't be a whole lot of results. Let's look at the load count. 2 loads. Normally I would have like 10 to 20 loads. So we're down to 2 loads around Portland. Check Seattle. 4 loads. Yep, much lower than normal, but these are not good markets anyway. Let's check Green Bay, Wisconsin. This is probably going to do Green Bay and Milwaukee. Now that's Green Bay, Alabama. I don't want Green Bay, Alabama. Why would Green Bay, Wisconsin not be the first result on that? Landstar's load board is weird with some stuff. All right, Green Bay, 5 loads. This is really bad because the Green Bay, Wisconsin area, and I'm pretty sure Milwaukee is within 150 miles of Green Bay. So this is Green Bay and Milwaukee and several other areas. that are really good freight markets, only 5 loads showing up. These numbers are really, really low compared to normal. Let's check Chicago. Now, I'm almost 100% certain that a 150-mile radius around Chicago is going to include Milwaukee. 9 loads within 150 miles of Chicago over $4,000 and $3.30 a mile, matching all these parameters. 9 loads. There would normally be at least 50 loads showing up with these search parameters. Usually more than that, but like bare minimum 50. Where else? Where else to look? Atlanta, Georgia. I checked this earlier, and Atlanta actually had a decent number of loads. 31 loads. That is not too far off from normal for Atlanta. That's like, the Atlanta market is actually not that, it hasn't taken as big of a dip as a lot of these other markets have. Laredo, Texas. Let's check 3 locations in Texas. We'll do Laredo, Dallas, and Houston. Laredo, 34 loads. That is not too far below average for Laredo. Dallas, Texas, 18 loads. That's a pretty big dip for Dallas. I would say normally there would be like 40 or 50, somewhere in that area, loads that would show up in these searches. Houston, Texas, not Houston, Alaska. 13 loads in Houston. It's a bit low, but like it's not as big of a drop as some of the other markets. There might be, I don't know, 30, 40 loads in Houston that match these search parameters normally. But yeah, it's looking like the markets that are hit the hardest are California and the Great Lakes area. Those markets have taken a significant drop. But everywhere we've searched, it's been lower than normal. I would say Atlanta has taken the least of a drop of the areas we've searched. And I'm not going to look up into the Northeast because, well, we'll check the Northeast. But I never searched the Northeast, so I don't know what's normal for up there. But let's check Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. $23 loads around Mechanicsburg. That should get shit. I'm trying to remember which side of the state is Pittsburgh and which side of the state's the other one, Philadelphia. So I think Pittsburgh is on the west and Philadelphia is on the east. So this should get Philadelphia. 150 miles of Mechanicsburg should include Philadelphia. And it might even include Baltimore, Maryland. Not sure. But 23 loads. I don't know like what's normal. I never search that area because I never go into that area. Well, I used to when I was with USA Truck, but now that I'm with Landstar and I don't have to drive the East Coast, I don't. So we're going to look at fuel here in a second. Let me switch this over to the camera. So what does all this mean? Everything that we've just looked at, what does that mean? The freight market has tanked. We have been basically setting at record high freight rates it's been since June of 2020 that we've been basically shortly after. So we had the lockdowns that happened in early 2020. The lockdown started lifting around March or April of the lockdown started in March, and they started lifting right around May or June. I think some states continued their lockdowns a little longer than others. I don't remember all the exact details, but June of 2020, the freight market started a dramatic rise upward from like it was really, really, really bad, and then in May or June of 2020, it started just skyrocketing upward, and by the fall, by like September, we were setting like record highs. So it was a dramatic rise in the freight market from around June 2020 until the fall of 2020. We went from like record lows to record highs within like 3 or 4 months. It was a dramatic rise in freight rates. And we set up there at around those record high freight rates all the way up until, you know, early part of this year. Just a couple of months ago, like 3 months ago or so, we've been really close to those record highs. So it's been like 2 years that we have been just at an all-time high freight market. Now, some other things to consider in that is that we have dealt with inflation that we have never dealt with in this country before. The rate of inflation over the last couple of years has been so much higher. Like, we have had constant inflation in this country for a very long time. But over the last couple of years, inflation has gone up considerably. So if you consider inflation, which is basically inflation is inflating the money supply, and we have a fiat currency or a faith-based currency, our currency has no like real value. There's not our currency is not backed by anything material. So it's purely faith-based. So it's our currency derives value from supply and demand. So if there's high demand and low supply or medium supply, we have a solid currency. But so let's say the demand does not change. We have solid demand for the currency. Well, then what fluctuates the price is the supply of the currency. So if the supply of the currency drops, the value of the currency goes up. If the supply of the currency inflates, then the value of the currency goes down. But also on the other side of the equation, if the demand for the currency changes, that also affects the value of the currency. And we have two things happening right now that are affecting the value of our currency. Number one is the demand for the US dollar is going down. Why is it going down? There's a lot of reasons. One is because we've used sanctions as an offensive weapon against other countries for so long that other countries have started to move away from the dollar. One of the biggest things that they're moving away from the dollar in is with fossil fuel purchases, mainly oil. We've had what's been referred to as the petrodollar system going for a very long time, and that has created tremendous demand for the US dollar. Now all of those countries that sell oil, the oil exporting countries, they've started selling their oil in other currencies aside from the dollar, and they're continuing to do so. This causes a significant reduction in the demand for the dollar. And then we have out of control government spending at record high levels that is inflating the money supply. It's just creating tremendous amounts of US dollars in the system. So our government is just pouring US dollars into the system, and the demand for those dollars are going down. And this causes both sides of the equation, the demand going down and the supply going up causes massive devaluation of the currency. So we've been dealing with devaluation because of inflation and reduced demand at a level that we haven't dealt with. I don't know when the last time anything like this has happened in our country or with the US dollar. I'm not that big of a student of history, but we're dealing with a major event that's taking place right now with the value of the dollar. I could talk about this for hours, but let's bring this back into the topic at hand. The reason I bring up the value of our currency is because whenever you look at record high freight rates that we've been setting, yeah, that's great and all, but whenever you consider that the value of the dollar has dropped significantly, those freight rates don't look so amazing anymore. That's another reason that we're seeing really high prices at the pumps for fuel, is because the value of the dollar isn't worth as much as it used to be. It costs a lot more dollars to buy that oil from Saudi Arabia or wherever in the hell we're getting it from, Venezuela or I don't know where. It costs more dollars to get it here, and that increases the price of the pump. So it's not just supply chain issues. It's not just sanctions based on the Russia and Ukraine conflict. It's not just the threat of Israel attacking Iran or China attacking Taiwan. It's not just all the rest of that. Like, there's so many things going on in the world right now that are affecting the supply chain and pricing of all kinds of goods. It's not just all of that. It's also that the value of our dollar is just not as good as it used to be. So, and it's dropping dramatically over the last couple of years. It's been a dramatic drop in the value of our currency. So we're having to pay a lot more to get that oil into the country, or to get those fossil fuels into our country. So whenever you look at the price of freight based on the value of our currency, these all-time high freight rates are not looking quite as good as what we think they are. So whenever you compare these record high freight rates and you value them, bringing in the devaluation of our currency, we have been looking at what happened was we had a huge spike in freight rates right after the lockdowns ended because of tremendous demand, a lot of built up demand. Because whenever the lockdowns happened, companies didn't know what in the hell to do. And when companies don't know what to do, when there's tremendous volatility in the market, companies cut back on spending. So there's, normally the companies out there buying new computers, new servers, they're expanding their business, they're opening up new stores, they're hiring new employees, they're giving raises, that's normal business operations. Whenever there's a lot of volatility, whenever something major happens, they stop buying shit. They only buy what they absolutely have to. They halt raises, they halt bonuses, they halt all that shit. They just kind of like sit there and wait to see what happens. And that's what happened during the lockdowns. And then once the lockdown started lifting, all the businesses went, all right, let's go back to normal operations. So you had a tremendous amount of built up demand. Freight rates skyrocketed. Well, then we've been dealing with massive inflation because the government went out and said, you know what, we've got to restart this economy, and they started just dumping money. They started giving people what the fuck was that shit called, where they would just send people checks for like $1,400 or whatever. They just started creating tons and tons of money, devaluing the currency. And then we have all the rest of this stuff going on in the world. That it's taking too long to explain. Try to simplify this a little bit. But we had these freight rates that are going up, and then we have devaluation of the dollar due to many factors, which I don't want to take 4 hours to explain. But the freight rates just kind of sat there. But the value of the dollar was going down. So how do you know the value of the dollar is going down? Fuel prices were going up. The cost for labor to get your truck worked on went up. The cost for parts went up. The cost for food in the grocery store went up. All of our costs as owner-operators went up. Freight rates were right here, all-time highs, but all of our costs started going up. Well, that's the value of the dollar going down. Freight rates right here, value of the dollar going down. So freight rates have actually been going down because of devaluation of the dollar for a very long time, for a year and a half or more. And now we have the rates plummeting and the value of the dollar is still going down. So the freight rates are just, what I'm trying to explain is how quickly and how dramatically freight rates are tanking right now. Freight rates are absolutely just bombing right now. Whenever you take into consideration the valuation of the dollar, right now, as we speak, the value of the dollar is still continues to drop. The price of goods at the grocery store is still continuing to go up. The price of fuel is still continuing to go up. The price of labor, the price for parts, the price of everything is still going up. So the value of our dollar is still going down, and freight rates are going down with it. Our expenses are going up, and the rates are going down. So things are really, 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 really bad. Things have only been things have been getting bad for a year or more. But because we were at all-time highs, we just, the market just kind of went down to where it was still a good market. Now we're starting to get to that point where it's crossed over to where we hit a normal market and we're still going downward. We're hitting a normal market right now, but we're still going downward. And this is happening very, very fast. And people are already starting to feel the pain. Let's look at fuel prices real quick, and then I'm going to give you what I think about all of it together. What do I think it's going to happen? What do I think is going to happen? Let's look at fuel prices. Let's use this screen right here. Let's look at Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is one of the cheapest places you can get fuel. I got to remember what acronym they use for city. I think they just use CY. And this thing is really annoying. It's frozen up right now because it's trying to auto-populate the search results. There it goes. And this is the most annoying application to use. 25-mile radius. Vendors, all. I don't want to look at all the vendors. I don't normally look at pump price. What I normally look at is price after Landstar discount. So let's look at all the vendors real quick. There's 2 pages of vendors. This Checkers truck stop. Don't believe any of these small, no-name, mom-and-pop shop prices. You'll look at one of these places and it'll be like, oh, that's a really good price. Well, Landstar is really bad about not updating these prices. This price is probably not accurate, which is why I usually don't even look at these places, these small mom-and-pop shops. I usually only look at mega carrier or the mega chain truck stops because their prices are almost always accurate. But these mom and pop like Checkers truck stop, almost guarantee you that that's not an accurate price. So these are the actual pump prices. And you know what? Let's just use TA and Petro. Man, they have TA and Petro split up. Let's just use TA. We're just going to use TA across country because TA is where Landstar gets their best discounts typically. Landstar started getting some really good Loves discounts. I'll show you that later. But for the sake of just looking around the country at fuel prices, let's only look at TAs. I wish that TAs and Petros were together. Is there a way I can select more than one? There's not. I can only select one at a time. This app is so bad. This little web page right here is so useless. The phone app is much better, but I can't, it'd be a pain in the ass for me to put the phone app in this video. But this is the actual pump price. Now let's look at price after Landstar discount. So $4.53 a gallon is how much it costs to get fuel at the TA in Oklahoma City. This is one of the cheapest places you can get fuel in the country is Texas and Oklahoma. So our Landstar discount is 76 cents a gallon at one of the TAs and 93 cents a gallon at the other. but we're paying the exact same amount at both of them, $4.53 a gallon. So let's check Dallas, Texas. It should be a little bit less, but not a huge difference. $4.53 a gallon. It's actually the exact same price. Bonnie View Road, the TA in Bonnie View. This is the cheapest place you can, get fuel at the TAs in the Dallas area. So it's usually like 5 to 10 cents a gallon cheaper than Oklahoma City. So that kind of sucks. Now let's go check somewhere else. Let's check Ontario, the TA in Ontario, California. $6.13 a gallon. We only get a 66-cent per gallon discount. So this is one of the most expensive places you can get fuel in the country. And Oklahoma City and Dallas are two of the cheapest places you can get fuel in the country. Now let's check one more place that is kind of mediocre, like average. And I would say that a really good place would be, what is that? It's in the Panhandle in Florida. It's Marionville or something? Let's just do Mobile, Alabama. It's not too far from Mobile. We'll have to increase our search radius to get it. Let's go to 150 miles. Nope, still not far enough. 200 miles. Mariana, this is it. The TA in Mariana is like a really good, like middle of the road fuel price. So that's $5.46 a gallon after discount. $5.85 pump price. Landstar gets some of the best discounts in the industry. I'm not claiming that they get the best, but they get close to the best discounts in the industry. But this TA in let's do Mariana. There we go. So $5.46 a gallon. So we looked at 3 different locations: the Oklahoma, Texas area, Southern California, and the Florida Panhandle. And Oklahoma, Texas, about $4.50 a gallon. Ontario was what, $6.50 a gallon. $6.13. So we're looking at $4.50 a gallon at the cheapest places, or close to the cheapest places. Sorry, I got a scam phone call coming in. $4.50 a gallon to why did it let that phone call through? It was that extended warranty bullshit. I wish that the government would crack down on these stupid scam call things. It's so frustrating. But so $4.50 a gallon, and this is after Landstar discounts. Some of the best discounts you can get in the industry. $4.50 a gallon in Oklahoma, Texas. $5.50 a gallon in the Florida Panhandle, Mariana, and then $6.13 or a little over $6 a gallon in Southern California. So between $4.50 and a little over $6 a gallon after discount. It's $6.80 a gallon before discounts in Southern California. Almost $7 a gallon in Southern California. We don't get a very big discount at this TA. You know what? Let's check Love's. Petro, we get the exact same price. Love's, no Love's. Let's check 100 miles. Yeah, our discounts at Love's suck in Southern California. All right, so let's go back to me. What does all this mean? What the hell does all this mean? You know what? I should probably do a spreadsheet. Let's pull up Excel, start a new blank workbook. When you think about how I want to do this, um, basically, you have two things. You have revenue, which is how the freight rates, like how much are you making off the loads. You have revenue, and you have expenses, like what are your fuel costs, what's your truck payment, things like that. As an owner operator, these are the two main things that dictate your business: revenue versus expenses. And what we're having happen right now is our revenue is going down and our expenses are going up. We're having, like, this is so incredibly bad for owner operators. This is really, really, really bad for owner operators. And I'm not sure I'm going to break this out on a spreadsheet, but if I think of something to do on a spreadsheet, then I've got it pulled up. We'll look at it. But this is happening a lot faster, and it's happening a lot more dramatic than what I thought it was going to happen. I expected a lot of companies to be going out of business within the next 1 to 2 years. And I expected a correction, and then freight would start picking back up. So I expected after approximately 2 years, freight would start going back up. The correction is happening a lot faster than I anticipated. What do I mean by correction? Am I saying that I think freight rates are going to go back up? Or am I saying that I think our expenses are going to go back down? Is the value of our currency going to go back up? When I talk about freight market corrections, what I'm referring to is supply and demand in the freight market. The supply and demand in the freight market is dictated by the amount of freight versus the amount of trucks available to haul that freight. Now, over the next, I don't know how long it's going to take, probably a lot less than 2 years now because it's happening so fast. As this plays out, we're going to see a lot of trucks disappear from the road. There's going to be a lot fewer trucks looking for freight. But they're going to cling to life for as long as they can. And this is going to cause the freight rates to plummet because we're going to have a reduction in freight, and we're going to have too damn many trucks clinging on for dear life, and they're going to cause the rates to go down even more and more and more and more. We could be seeing dollar a mile freight. And then we're going to see a mass exodus of trucking companies. I think that we're going to see, back in 2019, it was headlines for months about all the trucking companies going out of business. And that is, I think what's about to happen right now is going to dwarf that. It's going to be way bigger than that. Because back then, what we were dealing with in 2019 was just like a slightly below average market. Because in 2018, our government threatened to increase tariffs on China to offset a trade imbalance. And because of that, all the companies in the United States said, okay, buy everything we need before the tariffs go into effect. Tariffs are basically taxes. So before those huge taxes went into effect, companies in 2018 started just buying up everything that they could. So they bought all the shit that they needed in 2018 and all the shit that they needed in 2019. So 2018 was this huge boom year in freight. And we saw a huge number of trucking companies enter the industry. Anytime freight rates get good, you have every asshole in the world starting up a trucking company. Every asshole in the world becoming an owner-operator. Every asshole in the world becoming a truck driver. It's like when freight rates are amazing, the market just gets flooded with more trucks. And then when the freight market goes bad, they're gone. So what happened was in 2018, it was a boom year because everybody was buying everything that they could before the tariffs went into effect. And then 2019 came along, and they didn't really need to buy anything, and all the talks about the tariffs just kind of went away. So now there was no threat of tariffs anymore, and they had an overabundance of shit. So they didn't need to buy nearly as much in 2019 as normal, because they already bought that shit in 2018. So we saw trucking companies going out of business like crazy in 2019. Now, what we're about to deal with, what we're dealing with at this very moment, I think is going to be a lot worse, because we are looking at way beyond record high fuel prices, and we're going to see a huge drop in freight on top of that. We're going to be hit with the revenue and the expenses at the same time. Whereas last time it was mainly just a drop in revenue. Our expenses did not increase dramatically. It was mainly just a drop in revenue. Now we're going to see a drop in revenue and increased expenses. So I expect a tremendous amount of trucking companies. Like, it's going to be major news headlines. I don't know exactly how long it's going to take for it to happen. I think that there's already a lot of companies in distress that they're not going to advertise it. Companies that are in distress right now, like, you usually don't find out there's anything wrong with the trucking company until they go out of business. And one of the very first things that happens when a trucking company goes out of business, their fuel card gets shut off. That's one of the very first things that happens when a trucking company goes out of business. So the drivers that are driving for a company, they're out there trying to get fuel, and their fuel cards aren't working. And that'll usually start making news headlines. Be like, yes, Celadon's fuel card stopped working. And then later that day or the next day, you'll hear an announcement that Celadon is filing for bankruptcy. That's the way shit happens in this industry. These companies don't go out and broadcast that they're in distress and they're about to go out of business. They will keep quiet about everything until the moment that they go out of business. So I suspect there are a lot of companies in distress right now, and they're trying to figure out how to make shit happen. They're trying to figure out how to stay in business. And they're going to ride it out until the last minute. They're going to cling to life for as long as they can. Like I mentioned in previous videos, the very first people that go out of business whenever we hit a rough time in the freight industry, in the trucking industry, in the transportation industry, whatever you want to call it, whenever we hit hard times, the very first companies that go out of business are owner-operators in walk-away leases. They have the least to lose. They have almost no skin in the game. Owner-operators in walk-away leases lose almost nothing whenever they walk away. The only thing that they lose is whatever they've already paid into their maintenance account, and they might get that back, actually. It depends on the contract. But basically, in most of those walk-away leases, they charge you by the mile or something like that, like 7 cents a mile to use the vehicle or something. And there's a certain amount of money that they take from you, and it sets in like an escrow account. And if you complete the lease, you get that money back. But if you don't complete the lease, they keep it. So in walk-away leases, and then if you're in a lease purchase, there's something similar. You have a down payment on a lease purchase, and they might also have like a maintenance escrow that they take out, and they keep that down payment if you don't complete the lease, and they might also keep the rest of the stuff, like your maintenance that you paid in, or whatever they charge you for mileage, or what the shit ever. But the point I'm making is, yes, these walk-away lease people do typically lose something if they walk away, but they don't lose nearly as much as people that are not in walk-away leases. So walk-away leases lose the least. Lease purchases lose the next least amount of money, and then it goes from there to the people who actually own the equipment. They can't just walk away from it. They can't just like turn it back in. They own the equipment. They have to file bankruptcy or something. I can't make the truck payments anymore. The bank can repossess it, and they're still going to take you to court and demand their money. They're going to repossess your truck, and they're going to demand that you pay off the loan. You're going to file bankruptcy on that shit. So I've already seen on YouTube, some of the truck drivers that I follow that were in walkaway leases, they've already walked away. That's already started happening. People have started walking away from walkaway leases just because the fuel price is going up. So all of that is happening. Let me check the news real quick and see if I can. Let me pause this. So I was just trying to look at news articles to see. Let me flip you over to this page to see like what kind of is there any news out there about how bad the freight market is or anything like that? No. Cross-border truck freight shatters record high in March. Like, all of this is positive news. Global freight trucking market to reach $2.7 trillion by 2026. This is one of the reasons that the stock market is disconnected from reality, is because to the stock market, the value of the currency going down is a good thing, because stock prices go up to offset that valuation. Does that make any sense? Like, let's say the value of our dollar dropped in half. Let's say that the freight industry is a $1 trillion industry, and the value of the dollar drops from $1 to 50 cents. Well, if the freight industry continues doing exactly what it's been doing, now it's a $2 trillion industry because the value of the dollar dropped in half. Well, these dumbasses would be out here writing news articles about how the freight industry just doubled. This is amazing news. Buy stocks in freight. Context means a lot. But yeah, the stock market is on fire throughout all this inflation because, the value of the currency is just plummeting. And it's causing the prices of everything to go up, and it causes the value of the stocks to go up and everything. It's just stupidity. I am not seeing much of any negative news. So a lot of this government funding, I think, is to update some of our ports and stuff like that. Here is one that says April freight index sees shipment and expenditure declines. The problem with the news is that it typically reports things after they happen. And a lot of the financials are reported on a quarterly basis. So the news usually lags behind what's really happening by a long ways. For instance, back whenever we had the 2008-2009 economic crisis, the crash of 2008-2009, I knew that was happening over a year before it happened. I had friends that were in the real estate business that, like, several years, like back in around, I want to say 2004 or 5, I was told by, people in the real estate industry, a buddy of mine got into real estate in 2004, 2005, and he was working for a small brokerage of people that, had been in the industry for a very long time. He became very good buddies with the lady that owned the brokerage, and he learned a lot from them. And they were well aware of the ridiculous shit that was happening in the real estate market, and they told him what was happening and what was going to happen because of it. Like, several years before it happened, people in the know knew what was going to be the outcome. And leading up to the crash of 2008, 2009, the stock market didn't really start crashing until several months after the real estate market was just really bad. And so the stock market and the news lags behind dramatically on what's happening on the ground. What's really happening. Like right now, trucking companies are going out of business, and somebody walking away from a walkaway lease, that's a trucking company going out of business. The majority of trucking companies are owner operators. That's the majority of the trucking companies in this industry, and they've already started shutting down their businesses. A lot of them aren't quitting trucking; they're becoming company drivers, or they're doing something else in trucking. But one of the things that I think is going to happen is that as the market tightens, as the rates drop, as the expenses continue to rise, you're going to see a lot of things happen. And this is just my opinion, and I'm not an expert. I'm an owner operator, and this is my opinion based on my knowledge and experience, and the information available to me. So what I think is going to happen is you're going to see companies like, let's say you want to lease on with JB Hunt, or you want to lease on with Landstar, or you want to lease on with USA Truck. Well, when the market tightens, when the amount of freight drops, the expenses are really high, everyone's going to start shrinking their fleets. So you're going to find it very difficult to hire on to places. They're going to either stop hiring completely, or they're going to significantly increase their requirements. They may not change their website requirements. It may still say that anybody can apply, but the people that they're actually hiring, they're going to start getting really selective. And you may meet the requirements to get on with a company, but they may only want to hire 1 or 2 people, and they may have had 5,000 applicants. So they're going to pick the best. They're going to pick the most experienced people that have the best driving records. So I think it's going to be hard to lease on. I'll give you an example. Back during the lockdowns, I was getting really frustrated with USA Truck, and I contacted Transport America, which is like a sister company to CFI. CFI is Transport America is an owner operator. I think it's only owner operators. But they're like a sister company to CFI. And I contacted Transport America because they had a fairly good lease program, and they didn't require a lot of experience. So I thought maybe I could lease on with them instead of USA Truck, because I was getting really frustrated with USA Truck. Well, I called them up, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not doing any lease contracts right now." I'm pretty sure that Landstar also stopped hiring new leases during the lockdowns. So that is one of the things that happens whenever the freight industry tanks. Whenever we have a really bad thing happen in the freight industry where the amount of freight plummets, if you are wanting to change, if you're wanting to make a change, you better do it quick. Because if you wait until this shit hits the fan, you might not be able to move. You might be stuck wherever you're at. That's the point I'm making. You may not be able to lease on somewhere, or you may not be able to hire on somewhere. There's always going to be somebody hiring, but it may not be exactly where you want to go or what you want to do. That's one of the things I think is going to happen. Aside from, there's going to be a whole bunch of people going out of business, but it's going to be hard to get hired on. And it's going to be hard to even lease on as an owner-operator, to lease on to places. Some other things I think are going to happen. Companies have been increasing their governors and increasing their rate of pay dramatically over the last couple of years to try to scoop up as much of this high-paying freight as they possibly can. Like I said earlier, whenever the freight's amazing, every asshole in the world starts spinning up a trucking company, and these people get stupid with their money. Just trying, like, it's like this big pinata of money, and they're just trying to get as much of it as they can. It's hard to not make money whenever the freight industry is on fire, and that's what's been happening for the last couple of years. The freight industry's been on fire, and every dumbass in the world has been spinning up a trucking company. Well, these things are set up really bad. Most of these new trucking companies are not structured in a way that they're going to be able to stay in business whenever rates go down and expenses go up. Well, some of the things that these trucking companies have been doing to try to scoop up as much money as they can is they've been doing things to attract drivers. They've been increasing their governed speeds on their trucks. This increases their fuel cost by a lot. And they have been increasing their rate of pay. Like, used to, just a couple of years ago, if you were getting, 55, 60 cents a mile as an owner-operator, but as a company driver, you were making damn good money. You're making 60 cents a mile as a company driver, you're doing damn good. Now, I'm hearing about company drivers making $1.15 a mile. Do you think they're going to be able to continue paying those rates to the company driver whenever the price of freight drops down to like $1 a mile? How are they going to be able to pay for the truck and the fuel and all the maintenance and repairs and everything else when the load's paying $1 a mile and they're paying the driver $1.15 a mile? Like, how does that math work out? Those are companies that have a bad business model, and they're going to go out of business really quick. So if you are in one of those positions where you're a company driver and you got into one of those positions where you're making like $1 a mile as a company driver from one of these no-name companies that just spun up out of nowhere, you better come up with a fucking backup plan. Because that company is going to go out of business. Either that, or they're going to try to negotiate with you to get you to take a lot less money. And when I say a lot less money, by the time they get to the point where they realize that they're going to go out of business, they're going to have to drop you down to like 40, 50 cents a mile for them to stay in business. It's not going to be like 5 or 10 cents a mile that they're going to drop your pay down from $1.15 down to $1.10 or $1.05 or something like that. I'm talking, in order for them to stay in business, they're going to have to dramatically reduce your pay. And you're probably not going to agree to that. And you're going to be like, screw you, I'll go work somewhere else. And then you're going to go over here and start looking for another job. And you're going to be like, where are all these $1 a mile companies? Where'd they all go? Now places are offering 40 cents a mile. And there's, and you're applying at these places and they're not hiring you. And you're like, what the hell's going on? I've got a year of experience and I've only got that one accident. And why aren't these places hiring me? I've applied at 10 different places and they're not hiring me. Those are some company drivers that, in my opinion, are in a bad position right now. Those company drivers that are working for these little new trucking companies that are paying like $1.15 a mile. And by the time they lose that job, the market will probably have already tightened. And it's going to be really hard to get hired on somewhere else. Now, if you have like some really amazing resume, you're probably still going to be able to move around freely. But if there's anything remotely negative on your resume, then you're probably going to have difficulty moving around. You're probably going to have to end up working for one of the really shitty mega carriers. I think everybody's always going to be able to get those shitty mega carrier jobs. But, I don't know. I think it's just going to get rough. Anyway, we're approaching an hour. And there's so much that I want to talk about. And my mind is bouncing all over the place because I have all these things I want to talk about. But we're approaching an hour. Is there anything I want to say to just kind of sum up? Everything we've been looking at and everything I've been talking about is that the freight market is in the process of tanking. It is going down a cliff right now. Whether you've realized it or not, it's going down a cliff. our expenses, I don't see them raising dramatically, but they're already, like, they've already gone up significantly over a short period of time. But I see them continuing to rise slowly, but for the foreseeable future, I'm not suspecting a significant rise. Now, there are two things that can happen that would cause another significant rise in our expenses. And I don't even really want to think about these two things happening because they would dramatically change life as we know it in a short amount of time. One of those things is Israel attacking Iran. And another one of those things is China attacking Taiwan. Even if we did not get involved in either of those conflicts militarily, there will be economic repercussions. We will sanction, and there will be massive supply chain disruption. If Israel attacks Iran, which Israel's one of those countries that they don't really beat around the bush about shit. If they say they're going to do something, they fucking do it. And Israel has stated that they will not let Iran become a nuclear capable country. If Iran ever gets the capability to launch a nuclear missile to Israel, they will attack them. And Iran has reached, I believe, 60% enrichment of uranium or whatever nuclear material they're enriching, which supposedly is the bare minimum for weapons grade. So it is highly likely that Israel is going to attack Iran in the near future. It could be weeks, months, it could be 1 or 2 years. But when I say near future, I'm talking about the next 2 years. I'm old. You know, my view of time is different from somebody that's 10 years old. For somebody that's 10 years old, when you say the near future, they're thinking like the next couple hours. When I say the near future, I'm talking like the next couple of years. China and Taiwan. China has flat out stated that they are going to take Taiwan back. They have like some 2045 plan or something like that. I forget what it's called. But part of that is the reunification, a one China policy. And they have made it very, very clear that they are going to take Taiwan back. And they have been building up their military. Their military spending has gone up dramatically over the last 10 to 20 years. And they have surpassed us in a lot of categories militarily. I think China has the largest navy. They have. It was a couple of years ago that they overtook the rest of the world with the largest navy, and they're building aircraft carriers and things to counter us militarily. They want their military to be in a position where when they do attack Taiwan, that we will not risk a direct conflict with them. We were such a we used to have such an advantage militarily over China that we would just have to roll up close to Taiwan with one of our aircraft carriers, and China would just have to back down because there was nothing that they had to counter it. Now they have stuff to counter it. So now we're scared to take our aircraft carriers too close to that area for fear of escalation, because now China is not just going to back down if we enter the area. Now China can, counter us. They can take out our fleets. So China has already hit that point where militarily we're probably we had agreements with Ukraine. Ukraine was one of the largest nuclear powers in the world whenever the Soviet Union fell apart. And part of the talks to get them to give up their nuclear weapons was the United States promised them that they would help defend them against any Russian aggression. How did that work out for Ukraine? Well, we made very similar promises to Taiwan. We told Taiwan we would have their back if China ever tried to invade. But now we can't risk it. China has become too much of a military power. So whenever China does decide to take Taiwan, I can almost guarantee you we are not going to engage them militarily. We're going to do the same shit we did to Ukraine. We're going to sanction them. We're going to sanction China. And we get almost everything from China. Like antibiotics. A lot of people don't understand how important antibiotics are because you're not on antibiotics every day. But we can't have surgeries without antibiotics. Like, there are a tremendous amount of people that take antibiotics on a daily basis. And we get like it's something stupid like 96% of our antibiotics in this country come from China. We are heavily like dependent on other countries, as countries that we would consider to be adversaries. China is an adversary of ours, and we are incredibly dependent on them. If China invades Taiwan and we sanction them, we cut off trade or reduce, not even cut off, but just reduce trade with China, it would change the United States. Like it would have a huge impact in this country, massive impact with just a reduction of trade with China. And then Israel attacking Iran, a war breaking out into the Middle East, there would likely be other countries that would join into that war. But even if it was just Israel versus Iran, which I'm not sure how that would take place without other countries joining in, because Israel would have to go over other countries to attack Iran, and those other countries are hostile to Israel, so they would probably start shooting at Israeli planes that were flying through there. But that would cause a massive disruption in the Middle East, one of the largest oil producing areas in the world. So if those two conflicts break out, which they're almost guaranteed to break out, it's just a matter of we don't know exactly when those two conflicts are going to break out. Israel and Iran is going to happen. China and Taiwan is going to happen. Not certain when. Another one that could break out is India and Pakistan. India and Pakistan fucking hate each other. They're both nuclear armed countries, and they've almost broken out into war a couple of times within the last few years. I haven't heard anything about India Pakistan recently, but there have been a lot of skirmishes within the last 5 years or so between those two countries. And we're dealing with a tremendous amount of volatility in the world. And as these little wars start breaking out and tensions start rising and everybody starts escalating, it could just escalate out of control. I don't even want to think about like that happening, but if things remain conventional and they remain regional, then we're talking about massive supply chain disruptions. They're going to make the supply chain disruptions that have happened over the last couple of years look like nothing. So, if nothing changes, then we're looking at a lot of trucking companies going out of business within the next, probably by this fall. We'll start reading a lot of news articles about trucking companies going out of business by this fall. September, October, somewhere around that time. I'm sure that there will be, a lot of trucking companies go out of business between now and then, but it'll probably start making major news headlines by September, October, if things just keep like the way they are. The freight, we don't have any other major military conflicts or anything break out. The freight just continues going down like it is right now. Fuel prices continue slightly rising the way they are right now. If everything remains the same, then I suspect that within the next 2 to 3 months, we're going to start seeing news headlines of trucking companies going out of business. I don't know how long it's going to last until rates come up. Basically, rates are not going to come up until we have enough people go out of business. Once, we separate the wheat from the chaff, We get all the chaff out of the market, all those shitty transportation companies, all those dumb shits that just spun up a trucking company because, you couldn't lose money. Once all of those people go out of business, then it's supply and demand. Yes, we have reduced freight, but we also have a reduced number of trucks in the industry. So the rates will start climbing back up to a level where you can, operate normally and stay in business. So, here's an article. Freight rates in May fall, but transporters defer fleet expansion plans. So trucking companies they're already starting to stop expanding their fleets. So anyway, I could keep rambling on for hours and hours. Let's wrap this video up. There's a lot of possible things that can happen that make it a lot worse than what it is already. But even with things remaining the same as they are right now, I think that we're in for some hard times, and I hope that you're in a position to ride it out. I hope that your expenses are not too terribly high, and I hope you're in a place where you have good revenue. And I think that access to contract freight is going to be critical. If you are just purely running off of the spot market, you're probably going to have a rough time. That's one of the reasons that I have not been in a huge rush to get my own authority. I would love to be running under my own authority right now, but I've been expecting this to happen for quite a while. And I think the best place to be for me personally is leased onto a carrier so that I have access to contract freight. There are people out there that have their own authority that run off the spot market that have, they've made, connections with brokers or shippers and receivers to where they can still stay in business. They have access to freight off of the, boards that can keep them in business. They built up those relationships over time. But if you're just one of those people that just purely runs off the spot market, you don't have any business relationships that you can rely on to make it through a bad market, I think those people are going to be hurting. So, I could create a list of where I think it's going to, like I said earlier, walk-away leases are going to be the first ones to go out of business. Lease purchase are going to be the next ones to go out of business. And it goes on and on from there. And people that have no business relationships that are running solely off the spot market, those are going to be some of the first ones. They're going to be over here as some of the first ones to go out of business, because their revenue is just going to drop too terribly much. I mean, if we start hitting dollar a mile freight, and it's costing you, I don't know. I'd have to run the numbers. Let me pause this while I run the numbers on fuel cost per mile. All right, let's flip over the spreadsheet. I think I did the math on this correctly. So if the fuel cost, which we just looked at a minute ago, in a normal market, the fuel cost after discounts, what I actually pay is around $5.50 per gallon. Yes, I can get it for $4.50 a gallon in the cheapest market in the country, and I can get it for $6.13 a gallon in one of the most expensive markets. But in general, it's right around $5.50 a gallon. And let's say that you get 7.5 mile per gallon average. What it's costing you per mile is 73 cents per mile in fuel cost. So if the freight rates drop down to $1 a mile and your fuel cost is 73, 74, 75 cents a mile, you're only making 25 cents a mile after fuel cost. And most owner operators still have a truck payment insurance, maintenance, repairs, tax preparation services, bookkeeping, parking. The list goes on of just business expenses. And then on top of that, they have their mortgage or rent, their utility bills at home, and all the rest of that stuff. Not a lot of owner-operators live out of their trucks. So they have their own personal expenses on top of that as well. So making 25 cents a mile after fuel cost, people aren't going to be able to stay in business for very long. They're going to very quickly go out of business because there are not a lot of people that have a lot of money in savings. Most people don't have very much money set aside in savings. So whenever this starts eating away at them, they're going to go out of business very quickly. So I don't know. Things are looking. Let's go back to this camera. Things are looking really bad. Now, the place we're at right now at this very moment is not great, but it's not like really bad. We're heading in a really bad direction. We're not there yet, but things are getting really bad. We're headed in that direction. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how things go. Oh, things could turn and head in another direction at any moment. I'm not Nostradamus. I don't know what's gonna happen next. I'm not some kind of oracle. I'm just making guesstimates based off of the information I have available right now. And things are constantly changing in the world. Things could happen to where all of a sudden the demand for freight goes up, or all of a sudden fuel prices go down, or things could happen to make it even worse than it already is right now, or better. It can go in any direction. But I think I need to wrap this video up, and I really hope that everybody out there understands what's going on in the world, and they're preparing, and they have a business model that can survive this. I really hope that everyone that's watching this video, that if you're an owner-operator or a company driver, I hope you're in a position where you're going to be able to ride this out without too much pain. So anyway, best of luck to everybody, and I think I might order some Uber Eats right now. What do I feel like eating? I'm fat and I'm hungry right now. So right now everything sounds good. So I might order some Panda Express. I haven't had Panda Express in months. I think it's been like 3 months since I've had Panda Express. But yeah, I think I'll order some Panda Express and watch some Netflix. And I'm still looking for a load to leave the house on. I got my load alert set up. I did not get a single alert today for my load alerts. I got 3 yesterday that were all the same load, and it was a bullshit load. The day before that, I got 2. And that was the day I was in the shop. And I wasn't able to call on that load alert right away. And by the time I had some time to call on that load alert, the load had already been covered. It was a load with CGI. It was one of those loads going from Grand Prairie, Texas, or Dallas. It was going to Kent, Washington on June 8th. And it was covered almost instantly. So they said the next one that they had available didn't pick up until like June 30th. And I was like, well, I hope I'm not sitting at home that long. I'll wait and see if something gets posted earlier than that. But anyway, wish everyone the best, and keep an eye on what's going on out there, and make sure you're in a position to make it through there. I have a couple of dumbasses that posted in the comments, but in general, the vast majority of people that watch my videos are really good people. There's just a certain percentage of people that are dumbasses that post stupid shit in the comments. But in general, I don't have very many of those. So I hope that all of you out there that aren't the dumbasses make it through this. And if you are one of the dumbasses that post stupid shit in the comments, then I hope you go out of business. I hope you're working at McDonald's after all this is settled. But anyway, best of luck to all of you. Bye.